March 7, 2021. 17 million Americans watch Meghan Markle tell Oprah Winfrey she did not want to be alive anymore.
What?
Immediate polling shows sympathy surge. Support increases. The narrative is hers. But sympathy in media crises does not explode. It drifts. And drift is harder to reverse than backlash. The question is not whether public sympathy shifted. It is when. And the answer is not a single moment. It is a 48-hour window when emotional intensity faded and structural doubt took hold.
What was hard to get over was being blamed for something that not only I didn't do, but that happened to me.
The Oprah interview aired Sunday, March 7, 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Initial reaction was visceral. Social media responses skewed sympathetic, especially in the U.S. Meghan disclosed suicidal thoughts. Allegations of racism within the palace. Institutional cruelty. That combination generated immediate emotional response.
Concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
This is the peak of sympathy. It happens in the first 12 to 24 hours after emotional disclosure. Audiences react to feeling, not fact. The interview was designed for that reaction. Confessional format. Emotional pacing. No institutional rebuttal. It worked.
With my wife by my side. Because I can't begin to imagine what it must have been like for her going through this process by herself all those years ago, because it has been unbelievably tough for the two of us, but at least we had each other.
But sympathy that depends on emotional intensity does not sustain once the intensity fades. In this case, the fade began within 48 hours. Not because audiences stopped believing Meghan. Because the emotional shock wore off and structural questions emerged. The first crack came from the palace response. March 9th. Buckingham Palace released a statement. 2 sentences. The whole family is saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan. The issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. That phrase, recollections may vary. It did not call Meghan a liar. It suggested memory is subjective. Perception is individual. Truth is complicated. That framing introduced doubt without hostility. And doubt is more effective than denial in shifting public perception. If the palace had issued a full rebuttal, it would have appeared defensive. Aggressive. That would have reinforced sympathy for Meghan. By saying recollections may vary, the palace acknowledged concern without conceding accuracy. It shifted the narrative from institutional failure to contested memory. Once the narrative became contested, sympathy began to fragment.
It's being called the biggest crisis for the British monarchy in decades.
Here is what happened in UK polling. Before the Oprah interview, Meghan's favorability in the UK was low but stable. Negative sentiment but not extreme. After the interview, initial reactions were mixed. Some sympathy, some skepticism. But by late March 2021, YouGov polling showed her favorability at -31%. Negative favorability. More people actively disliked her than liked her. Not a sudden collapse. A drift. The emotional peak of sympathy lasted days. The drift took weeks. And the drift was driven by narrative saturation. Narrative saturation works like this. The first time you hear an emotional story, you react with feeling. The second time you process with slightly more distance. The third, fourth, fifth time the emotional response diminishes and analytical response increases. After the Oprah interview, Meghan's story was repeated constantly. Every outlet covered it. Every commentator analyzed it. Every social media post debated it. That repetition reduced emotional intensity. Audiences moved from shock to evaluation. And evaluation invites doubt. The palace statement accelerated that shift. By introducing the phrase recollections may vary, it gave audiences permission to question without feeling morally compromised. You could sympathize with Meghan's experience while doubting specific claims. That nuance allowed sympathy to erode gradually rather than collapse suddenly. Gradual erosion is harder to reverse because it does not feel like backlash. It feels like recalibration.
Hey, it's me.
Meghan Markle is truly one of the most dangerous public figures on the world stage at the moment. She needs to...
What people miss is that sympathy does not require disbelief to fade. It only requires emotional distance. Meghan's disclosures were shocking. Suicidal thoughts, allegations of racism, institutional indifference, serious claims. But once the shock faded, audiences began asking structural questions. Why go to Oprah instead of addressing this privately? Why make allegations without naming individuals? Why frame this as institutional cruelty when you chose to leave? Those questions do not invalidate Meghan's experience, but they complicate the narrative. And complicated narratives do not sustain sympathy the way simple ones do. The contrast between US and UK polling shows this clearly. In the US, Meghan's favorability increased after the interview. American audiences responded to the confessional format. Individual overcoming institution. Redemption arc. That aligns with American media culture. In the UK, her favorability dropped. British audiences responded to the institutional framing. Bypassing the system. Airing private matters publicly. Challenging the monarchy. That violated British media norms. Same interview. Different cultural framing. Different sympathy trajectory. The contrarian interpretation is this. Sympathy did not collapse because audiences discovered a contradiction. It drifted because emotional intensity cannot sustain indefinitely. The Oprah interview generated peak sympathy in the first 24 hours. But peak sympathy is temporary. It depends on shock. Once shock fades, sympathy either converts to sustained support or it drifts into ambivalence. Sustained support requires ongoing narrative reinforcement. Meghan had no follow-up mechanism. The Oprah interview was a one-time event. Once it aired, she had no platform to reinforce the narrative. The British press had daily access. They shaped coverage incrementally. They did not need to disprove her claims. They only needed to introduce doubt and wait for emotional intensity to fade. Here is the measurable impact. Ofcom received over 41,000 complaints about Piers Morgan's comments dismissing Meghan's claims. That number shows immediate outrage. But outrage is not sustained sympathy. Complaints spike in the first 72 hours after controversy. They measure emotional reaction. Polling measures sustained perception. UK polling showed that while complaints spiked, sympathy drifted. By April 2021, Meghan's favorability had not recovered. By mid-2021, it had declined further. The outrage was real. The sympathy was temporary. The uncomfortable truth is that institutions recover faster than individuals in reputational crises. The palace absorbed the allegations from the Oprah interview without significant long-term damage. Approval ratings for the monarchy barely moved. The institution is larger than any single controversy. Meghan's reputation is tied directly to her individual narrative. If that narrative fragments, her reputation fragments with it. The palace had structural resilience. Meghan had emotional appeal. Structural resilience outlasts emotional appeal. The exact moment public sympathy shifted was not a moment. Structural questions emerged. And once audiences moved from feeling to evaluating, sympathy became conditional. Conditional sympathy does not sustain. It drifts. And drift is more damaging than backlash because it happens slowly enough that by the time it becomes measurable, it is already irreversible.